This concept of time management is really interesting because to manage something means to run or to control. And in essence, you can't control time, you can't master time. What time management is really about is this idea of self mastery and being able to use that time that's continuously ticking away, no matter what you do, in a way that benefits you and favors you. So, here's some tips that have allowed me to accomplish more with the time that I have. Tip number one, you control your own time. This concept is fundamental because the idea is that time flows continuously, but you have the option to choose what you're doing at any given point in time. That means that you can take charge and decide what things are important to you and what things are not important to you. So if you find yourself after 3 hours on Wikipedia looking at pictures of blobfishes on this rabbit hole, the fact of the matter is you're acting in a sense unconsciously without thinking and doing these actions. But when you take a conscious hold about where you're trying to spend time, you can then prioritize and do the things that you really want to do. So in that time of me spending like 3 hours going through Wikipedia looking at these cool fish with like lantern hides, I'm making a conscious decision to not work out. So it's not that I don't have time to work out, but it's that I didn't prioritize that in my schedule, and so it didn't happen. Tip number two, hell yeah or no. This is a principle that I actually got from a book titled Hell Yeah or No by Derek Severs. And it's this idea that whenever you're taking up any sort of task or obligation, you need to ask yourself this simple question, hell yeah or no. And this hell yeah is the idea that, oh yes, I'm super excited. This is exactly what I want to do, and I am going to do this. Or your response is no, I'm not going to take up this task. There's no in between. I think oftentimes we have situations where we fill up our time with things that we were like, maybe I want to go to this, maybe I'm not, and you end up going, and maybe you don't enjoy it as much as you wanted to. And you could have been using that time for other important things. So in this way, by creating this simple, I'm either going to really enjoy it or really love it, or I'm not going to do it, you're going to find yourself freeing up time and being able to do things that you really enjoy. Tip number three, creating a to-do list. Our brains are capable of amazing things, and it's important not to keep it bogged down and instead free up space for creativity and different capacities. So that means that every time you have a task, instead of your brain having to hold on and remember to every single thing that needs to be done and becoming stressed and overwhelmed by this, it's important to put everything down on a piece of paper. That way you can look at the different things you have to do and decide how to work towards them instead of keeping them in your head and getting stressed out and worried about it. Tip number four, prioritize. This goes back to this idea that maybe there isn't enough time each day to do everything that you need to do, but there is enough time to do what you need to do. So when you're looking to take on that to-do list, it's important to do things based on priority. This goes back to the 80-20 principle, which is this idea that 20% of your tasks lead to 80% of your productivity. So it's important that you identify what those 20% are so that you can spend your time accordingly and get the most bang for your buck. There are a lot of different methods people use to determine priority. And what I like to use is this urgent important matrix. And so the idea here is that if something's not important and not urgent, then you just completely eliminate it. You're not doing that. If something's urgent and important, that's what you want to do first. And if it's important but not as urgent, that's what you're going to prioritize to do later. Now, if something's not important but urgent, that's something you want to try to delegate and have someone else do it for you, or find some sort of placeholder or alternative for that same project or idea. So now we're looking at things that are important but not urgent. And if you find yourself putting a lot of things in this bucket, because when you're working on some of your personal projects, they oftentimes don't have deadlines, it's important to create artificial deadlines. And so these deadlines will allow you to create pressure on yourself to make sure that you're actually getting things done on time. The majority of people have a hard time working without deadlines. And it's really only the leaders that are capable of doing things without deadlines on their own time. But leaders aren't just born that way. And this is a skill that you have to cultivate, which is this idea of creating pressure on yourself and creating deadlines for yourself so that you get things done. So what I like to do with the to-do list that I have created is to also mark the priorities on the side of each task, whether it's important, not important, something to delegate, or something to completely remove. And from there, I also write the deadlines, the specific dates and time in which each task needs to be done. And this includes creating artificial deadlines for things that I think are of a higher priority to ensure that those things happen. So now when I'm looking at my to-do list, I have it specifically listed out by date and priority about what tasks need to be done. And from there, I can move forward in actually completing these tasks. Now, what I like to do is oftentimes it's easy to say, oh my gosh, all of these things are really important for me, and how am I going to be able to get all of these done in one day? And so I like to use this method where I just grab a Post-it note. And in that Post-it note, I'm only able to fit 1 to 3 tasks. So I write the most important tasks for that day down on that Post-it note. These are the 3 things that I need to do this day. And that way, when I'm done with the day, even though I had so many tasks, I finish the 3 most important things. I make sure I have time to do those things. I set those in my schedule, and I feel good. I feel like I actually accomplished something in that day, and that builds momentum to continue forward. So I like this idea of a routine, and the thing that differentiates a routine from the schedule is this notion of repetition. So a routine enables you to do things regularly each day, and that creates a system, and it creates momentum, and it allows you to continue moving forward and accomplishing the things that you want to get done. I would argue that a routine is almost essential to happiness. Look at the time you wake up, for example, whether it's 5 a.m. or 10 a.m. Your body follows a circadian rhythm. And so it's important to regularly wake up at the same time so that your body can get adjusted and feel good and feel happy with itself. If you throw that rhythm out of whack, then you're going to find yourself not being able to accomplish as many things as you want to because you're waking up groggily and things like that. So the idea of a routine is very imperative to get things done, to create rhythm, and to create momentum. 20 principle, but there's also the 10-90 principle, which is this idea that if you spend 10% of your time planning, then you can save up to 90% of the actual execution time. And so you have a list of things that you want to do, you have the priorities listed out. It's now time to put it into a routine and build out this block system so that you know what you're going to be doing at certain times to get things actually done throughout your day. I like to specifically use something where I can visually see what my day is going to look like, and I like to block out little chunks of time, whether it's something that's super productive like getting all my work done, or if I'm just blocking out time to relax or have fun or hang out with friends. I think all of that is really important, but it's very nice to have it all fit in there so that you don't have to stress out about the things that you're going to do, and you see an actual visual about how these tasks are going to get done. I usually like to create my routine and my to-do list the night before so that I kind of know what I'm going to be doing the next day, and I also have the night to think about these ideas and kind of sleep on them before I get up the next morning ready to go and start hitting everything. It's also imperative to really think about how you're blocking your time. There's this idea that if you say it's going to take you 3 hours to complete this essay, it's going to take you 3 hours to complete this essay. But if you say instead that I'm going to try to finish this in 1 hour, then you'll find yourself being able to accomplish that task in 1 hour. So being conscious of how much time you really want to spend on things and trying to get it in as less time as possible will really help you free up some time to be able to do other things, feel more productive, and feel more good about yourself. Because you're getting things done at a good, steady pace, and you don't feel like you're lagging behind or doing it slower than what you could really be doing. And the great thing about a to-do list is that you can actually mark things off. And this helps create this sense of accomplishment and helps propel you forward. It's definitely one of my most favorite parts. A routine essentially alleviates any stress you have because instead of holding on to all these different things that you need to do and thinking, oh my gosh, when am I going to get them done? How am I going to fit them into my schedule? I have to meet with my friends. I have to do this work. I have to, go pick up my kids. All of this kind of builds up. But with a routine, you're able to clearly see, oh, I can accomplish all of this today. I can get everything done. I've planned it out. Then nothing's in your mind and you're left free to think about other things, to enjoy yourself instead of being stressed out about your day. Or instead of finding yourself spending hours doing something which was probably not necessary to do, and now you're finding yourself having to finish your presentation in 30 minutes. Some objections that I've heard to this idea of routine is the notion of flexibility. And so it's very easy in your routine to block out times, being flexible to allow yourself this kind of wiggle room. And if you're really worried about that, one thing that I've definitely used is said, okay, these 3 things that I wrote on my post-it note, right? The most important tasks that I have, I'm going to make sure to block those out and get those done. And if something moves a bit, I'll move it around a bit, but these are the 3 things that I need to get done. And then once you've blocked that out in your routine, then you can guarantee that you're at least getting one thing that you really need to do done. And if you can do that every day in a year, then you're definitely going to be way farther along. I wanted to touch on a couple things in terms of the actual blocking and when you're doing the tasks that you've said you're going to do in a specific amount of time. And while this more relates to, in a sense, productivity, I think it's important first to mention that I'm not saying it's impossible to multitask, but the majority of people cannot efficiently multitask. And I am definitely one of those people. And this includes things like putting Netflix on the back when you're working on something. What I have found is that if you're doing something, the best thing that you can do is totally give it your all in that moment. So if you're hanging out with friends, then give it your all. Enjoy every second of that so that when you're done with that time, you feel good about yourself and you can move on. And same with completing a task. If you're working on something that's important, spend your time making sure that you're making it the best that you can do and completely focused and working on that so that once you finish, you can feel good about what you've accomplished. What I find when I'm doing something while also hanging out with friends is that I don't fully enjoy the time that I spend with my friends. And I also don't do that good of a job on whatever I'm working on. I'm not as efficient, not all of it goes in my head. And so I think it's better to do the tasks that you need to do efficiently in a given amount of time, and then do whatever you want to do, whether it's watching a movie, making that phone call, at a separate time, and give that your full attention. When you're doing something, give it your all. Don't be in the middle because you lose either way. Another thing is that when you're setting around this time is to really go into that time block with this conviction that I'm going to get it done in that time. So that means putting aside distractions and really focusing, getting into that mental state, not really letting any interruptions come in between so that you can accomplish that task, create that flow, and have it happen for you, instead of breaking it apart and then finding a hard time getting back into it. I really am a strong proponent of creating a routine, and I found that when I created a routine, I was much more efficient and I was much more happier because I was doing things I really enjoyed and I was getting the things that I needed to get done without having to worry or stress out about it. So if you agree to what I'm saying, please like this video. If you think that there's something else that needs to be added, leave me a comment, I'll check it out. Please subscribe to my channel, it really helps, and I hope to see you guys next time.